around working in Vietnam, but just a couple of years back, I was working in the Kingdom of Thailand. I'd say that share somehow, right, contributes our to the foundational identity, which goes beyond and above national boundaries.
Apart from my English, I think I learned how to be open-minded. It really helped when I first moved to a different region in Thailand to work as a teacher. Knowing different cultures also helped my students see the world beyond Thailand.
During Share Mobility program, I joined Islamic community trip as well as many other trips with my Burmese, Korean, Indonesian and American friends from different states, villages and culture, which inspired me to work with a diversity of people from different background and culture, which I am doing today as a community outreach manager in an international IT company with a diverse employee and a work environment.
We sit in our comfort zone, we are happy with what we do, and it's good to be exposed to other things.
Build one competency on top of each other without having to decide a complex competency all in one go.
The developments and impact of micro-credentials go beyond national context, contributes to the regional context, so that we can work together across regions and hopefully make it operationalized across the world.
The micro-credential program is a complementary part to regular on-campus learning and serve to fill the gaps in the skills provided in college with those required in the world of work and industry.
Life is what happens to you while you're busy making plans. Now, if you transfer this to the topic of micro-credential or higher education, it's basically don't talk too much about them, do it.
Micro-credentials!
The world has changed, and we are now living in a very much digital space, and digital transformation has changed the way we live, and digital connectivity needs to be addressed and utilized to promote the development of a stronger, sustainable and peaceful global community.
My name is Peter from Tuil. I think it is a truly important event.
The summit here this week is the great opportunity for the students or the so-called alumni of so many scholarship programs and so many cross-border collaboration to meet and to share their ideas, concerns, and the future prospect of the collaboration between Southeast Asia or ASEAN region and the European Union.
Great opportunity for young people from different parts of the world
to come together. It's a connective space. It's an inspirational space as well. It's also a platform, you know, for learning, cross-pollination of ideas and exchanges.
And for me, it was an extremely positive experience because even though I was invited as a speaker, I'm still just a student. So for me, it might sometimes be a bit intimidating to meet all those people who have like tons of expertise, who have like really prestigious positions. But everybody here is so open. Like, I really get the feeling that they value the opinions of students, and it's very easy for us to like get opportunities to share our opinion. And so that, in my opinion, created an amazing dialogue, to be honest. Like the way everybody's just getting inspired by each other. That was a very, very positive opinion, not just for me, but I've heard it from all the other people as well. So yeah, we appreciate that a lot.
I think it's long overdue. Really waited for this day for a very long time. Naturally, the pandemic didn't go away as quickly as we would have liked it to. It's important to take the opportunity to gather our current students, be it through virtual exchange or our past students and our physical exchange alumni.
The summit here is very intriguing for me. I think it's a very good opportunity for the alumni from ASEAN and European countries, because we've got to learn the digital transformation. Since you guys already know that COVID-19 outbreak has changes a lot of our lives, it would be very privileged and try to appeal to see the ASEAN and EU student and alumni network maybe in the future.
Hello everyone, my name is Maybe and my full name is Sinsawan Santaster, and right now I'm studying about communication, media and science, specialization in media informatics at the University of Dunaj in Hungary. Actually, I got a scholarship to study here, but all thanks to your scholarship, because I finished my study scholarship before I came here, because I was born and grew up in a town outside the capital of Laos, and it was difficult for me to learn English. So I learned by myself, and hopefully that I received the scholarship from U-Share. After that, I set my goal. I wanted.
Yeah, next week. No, next week I'll be on leave. Weeks after. Okay. Okay.
Hi. Morning. Morning. Excellencies, good morning and welcome. Welcome to our discussion today on EU-ASEAN cooperation on higher education. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you as well. And of course, to all of you joining us online, great that you're here from across Europe and across Asia. It's wonderful that we can be in touch this way. I'm Shada Islam. I'm an independent EU commentator and analyst based here in Brussels, and I specialize in EU-Asia relations. And I'm especially delighted to be moderating this discussion today, because believe it or not, 8 years ago, I was there when these projects were actually launched, and I helped discussions then as well. So it's really coming back home. So today's event is organized by the European Commission, the ASEAN Secretariat and partners, the British Council, DEAD, the German Academic Exchange Service, and NAFIC from the Netherlands. Now, everyone who follows EU-ASEAN relations knows that these are very, very exciting times. In 2 days, ASEAN and EU leaders will be meeting in Brussels for their commemorative summit, celebrating 45 years of a multifaceted partnership. ASEAN and the EU are, of course, we all know, strategic partners and work together on a range of very interesting issues. So it's no surprise that cooperation on higher education and research, including people-to-people connectivity, has become such a central core of EU-ASEAN relations and the EU-ASEAN strategic partnership. The reason, of course, is simple. Higher education means mobility, the exchange of ideas, initiatives, and thoughts. And these are so important, innovation and research, in today's very complex and very uncertain world. Today, we will be celebrating past achievements and exploring also the future. How can we enhance people-to-people connectivity in higher education? We will hear contributions and testimonies from the two funded programs, the EU-funded programs, SHARE, which is implemented by the British Council, DEAD, NAFIC, ENCA, Campus France, and EUA. And also from Erasmus, which is also a project initiative of the British Council, DAD, NAFIC, and the role of national agencies for the program. We will hear from expert speakers from Europe and ASEAN, and they will share their experiences and their thoughts about higher education. Many of them have participated in SHARE or other Erasmus projects. So prepare yourselves, friends, for a very exciting morning. For those of you joining us online, you can join the conversation. We want you to join the conversation by commenting or asking questions in the chat function. We're all familiar with the chat function now. And for those of you active on social media, the hashtag is #@ShareProgram. And finally, the event is being recorded and available online. Now, let me introduce, without further delay, the wonderful people here on the stage. European Commissioner for International Partnerships, Ms. Jutta Urpilainen. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for being here. His Excellency, Dr. Hang Chon-Naron, Cambodian Minister of Education, Youth and Sport. Thank you also for being here. And of course, His Excellency, Dato Lim Jok Hoi, Secretary General of ASEAN. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. It's now my pleasure, my privilege to introduce Ms. Urpilainen. Please, Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say that I'm very pleased to kick off EU-ASEAN Week with this event on higher education cooperation. We are highly interconnected and interdependent regions and economies, both EU and ASEAN. We face global crises like climate change, biodiversity loss, and rising inflation. And we both actually understand the power of education and research in addressing such challenges. Dear colleagues, today is an opportunity to explore the potential of the EU-ASEAN strategic partnership in higher education and research. Let me set out 3 points. First, education is my personal political priority. Education and learning are globally in crisis because of underfunding. The pandemic, unfortunately, made things worse. A slow recovery has meant less funding for basic services, including education. In September, at the UN Transforming Education Summit, the EU called on the international community to protect education budgets. And we know that basic services are key to resilience, and education, research and innovation can drive new growth. So we ask the others to join and invest more, but also better in education. We as Team Europe provide over half of total official development assistance to education, over half. And we increased a lot our share of funding for education in partner countries. Starting from 7%, we are now up to 13%, which means over 6 billion euros. So European Union, under my responsibility countries, is using over 6 billion euros for education. And of course, these investments help to transform education in our partner countries, including ASEAN countries. In Cambodia, our focus is on scholarships, early education, early childhood, building and improving schools, but also teacher training and capacity building. Because without high qualified teachers, we don't have quality education. In Laos, 2 EU projects focus on promoting inclusive education and rights, especially for disadvantaged groups. And in Myanmar, we improve access to education under very, very difficult circumstances through NGOs. Dear partners, my second point is that we must continue to enhance EU-ASEAN cooperation also on higher education and research. Since 2015, the SHARE program has supported ASEAN's vision of a common higher education space. It was awarded nearly 600 scholarships and virtual exchanges between the EU and ASEAN and within ASEAN itself. The Erasmus Plus program is, of course, another standout example. It has forged close links worldwide, including between students and researchers from the EU and ASEAN. Beyond student mobility and building ties between universities, Erasmus Plus strengthens teaching, human resources, and governance capacities. But dear friends, I think we can do even more. This brings me to my last point. The EU's 300 billion euros global gateway investment strategy. This strategy fosters partnerships in digital, green, energy, education and research, while promoting sustainable development and upholding our universal values. We want to address the global investment gap in hard, but also in soft infrastructure. Soft infrastructure is critical as it is about strengthening health, but also education and research systems. About investing in people, creating opportunities for our young people and forming sustainable links, not dependencies. Global Gateway builds on wide cooperation and working with private sector. It will further deepen the EU-ASEAN cooperation on higher education and research. And I'm very proud to tell you that on this Wednesday, we will formally launch the Sustainable Connectivity Global Gateway Flagship. Flagship has a focus on higher education and people-to-people cooperation, building on the successful SHARE program. And key priorities include strengthening student and academic mobility, as well reinforcing cross-regional university networks. We will also boost ASEAN vocational education institutions and businesses to support the green and digital transitions. So, dear colleagues, EU-ASEAN Week and also the summit are celebrating 45 years of our cooperation. But I think, yes, applause for that. I think it's always good to celebrate the past and the history and our good cooperation, but it's also important to look for the future. And that's precisely what we are doing. We are taking our partnership to new heights and together adapting the new challenges. Investment in people-to-people connectivity and in higher education will remain at the center of our cooperation. So my main message to you today is that you can count on the EU to be a trusted and committed partner also in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Commissioner, for setting the tone for this EU-ASEAN Week, as you said, and talking about the investments and the importance of investments in higher education and the need for people-to-people connectivity in higher education, which is, of course, the center of our discussions today. So thank you very much for setting the tone for our discussions today. So let me now give the floor, please, to His Excellency Dr. Hong Chon Nahon, Cambodia's Minister for Education, Youth and Sport. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Madam Jutta Upilainen, European Commissioner for International Partnership, Honorable Dr. Lim Chok Hoi, ASEAN Secretary General, representatives from the students, beneficiary of the SHARE program, partners, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the European Union for organizing the EU-ASEAN people-to-people cooperation on higher education. ASEAN and EU are strategic partners. Our cooperation ranges from political security, economic, to social, cultural, and higher education. Although the European integration is more advanced than ASEAN, our people are convinced that EU and ASEAN have many things in common, as Your Excellency has just mentioned. We aspire for peace and for prosperity for our people. To achieve this, we must closely work together to address the challenges. The world has never before faced with myriad of challenges. The UN adopted the SDG in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and to ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Asia and Europe must work together to achieve the SDG and leave behind a better world for all. In particular context, we are all standing at an important juncture to create a new paradigm, transforming education partnership, as Your Excellency, the Commissioner has just mentioned, which will benefit many young people for the years to come and uplift them to improve their lives and also to the full realization of human rights. I believe in the power of education, especially the advancement in science, technology, innovation, and partnership in order to equip our young people, our young students with knowledge, with skills, with global citizenship, and also commitment to address the challenges together. Once the great French poet Rabelais said, "Science without conscience is but the ruin of the soul. La science sans conscience n'est que la ruine de l'âme." We must also make higher education equitable for our young people in order to bring more benefits to humanity. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the EU for various partnership programs in higher education, including SHARE, Higher Education Cooperation, and Erasmus Plus program that provide opportunities for students and scholars from ASEAN to study and gain experiences in European universities, conduct joint research, build capacity, and promote academic exchange. SHARE supports ASEAN ambition to build a regional higher education space, to support policy dialogue, promote student mobility and employability, credit transfer, and enhance the quality assurance of higher education institutions. On behalf of the Cambodian children, may I thank the European Union for the budget support for education since 2003 until now. Your support helped us to transform our education from a war-torn country into a middle-income country now. Higher education must be transformed to equip our graduates with knowledge and skills for the future of work. In this regard, I would like to share the following views for enhancing our partnership. Firstly, university reform are necessary to develop soft skill and 21st century skills. STEM education, new teaching method, the use of digital tools to promote metacognitive skill and self-regulated capabilities, and learn to become a lifelong learners. This is also designed to respond to investor needs for smart workforce and government policy for digital transformation. And I agree very much with Her Excellency, the Commissioner, that soft infrastructure is even more powerful than hard infrastructure in order to promote good governance, promote new teaching method, and also especially to use digital tools in order to transform education. Secondly, universities as a hub within the entrepreneurial ecosystem, a platform to link education to the real world, to promote inquiry and problem-solving skills of our students. Thirdly, university business sector linkages to promote joint research and joint projects. This is a win-win long-term collaborative relationship for having EU investor working closely with the ASEAN universities to create an R&D presence in industry clusters near research universities. Last but not least, the establishment of EU-ASEAN Cyber University, focusing on improving existing digital platform, integrating the use of technology to teaching and learning, developing digital infrastructure in university, such as learning management system, and implementing digital education program, such as coding, apps, robotic, etc., in order to respond to the needs of the industry. I believe that our meeting today will provide opportunities to discuss an overarching subject of immediate importance for all of us, especially our joint commitment to further strengthen and empower EU-ASEAN students. I'm sure that through this dialogue, ASEAN and EU will have the opportunity to make valuable contribution to the common prosperity of our people, to global peace, to security, political stability, and to make our planet a better place for all. To conclude, I wish you all good health and great success in your endeavor, and our meeting fruitful deliberation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister, also for telling us about the ASEAN regional education space. We're very, very interested in that, of course, and of course, your comments on the way we work in the future for digital skills across our two regions. Thank you very much indeed for this. Let me now give the floor, please, to the ASEAN Secretary General. Excellency, please.
Excellency, His Excellency Dr. Hang Charon Naron, Minister of Education, Youth and Sport, Kingdom of Cambodia, Her Excellency Jutta Uparalan, Commissioner of International Partnership, European Union, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to you all. It is a pleasure to be here to address you all in person at this special event in celebrating EU-ASEAN people-to-people connectivity through higher education. This is a particularly salient topic for ASEAN as we're realizing a people-oriented, people-centered community is a crucial part of our Vision 2025. The Kuala Lumpur Declaration on Higher Education, adopted by the ASEAN leaders 2015, acknowledged higher education one of the catalysts in accelerating ASEAN's economic and political and social cultural development agenda. The declaration also saw the need to enhance intra-ASEAN mobility of students, scholars, as well as academic contribution of ASEAN higher education within the global academic community. This ties with the implementation of the ASEAN Social Culture Community Blueprint 2025, in which the strategic measure is strengthening regional and global cooperation and enhancing quality and competitiveness of higher education institutions. Higher education in Southeast Asia has seen rapid growth and internationalization in the last few decades. Access to higher education has expanded significantly as a result of economic and demographic changes. On average, ASEAN's member states allocated around 17% of their government spending budget on education. The region is also home to more than 7,000 universities and around 12 million students, which underscore the enormous potential of ASEAN in accelerating development and productivity. However, the spread of COVID-19 has also adversely impacted education sectors. The widespread closure of schools and education institutions has led to significant learning losses that affected over 150 million students in Southeast Asia, posing a serious threat to learning continuity and skill development. Notably, the ASEAN Development Bank estimate that the present value of learning losses in terms of productivity and lifetime earnings of affected students in developing Asia is at 1.25 trillion, equivalent to 5.4% of the region's 2020 gross domestic product. This underscores just how crucial education is to our economic growth and poverty alleviation. Moreover, we have observed that the impact of the pandemic can be multifaceted among different segments of the affected population. The consequences of prolonged social isolation has led to mental health concerns among our youth. As such, the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, SCRF, and its implementation plan adopted by the ASEAN leaders in 2020 sought to address this impact, giving due consideration to the hardest hit sector and vulnerable groups. The implementation, as we continue to give priority in promoting higher education in digital skills as part of the recovery process, especially by strengthening the ASEAN human security and accelerating inclusive digital transformation in the region. One of the key initiatives in the post-pandemic recovery is to equip our youth and students with digital literacy and 21st century skills needed to adjust to the changing world of work, which includes ASEAN member states adopting TVET and higher education curricula to the post-COVID future at work. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is in the context in which ASEAN cooperation with EU on higher education has been conducted and will continue to serve as a basis for our cooperation in the years ahead. We have witnessed the growing importance of higher education as a key sector in strengthening people-to-people connectivity between ASEAN and the EU, and that has been carried out through various initiatives, such as students and faculty exchanges and collaboration, as well as internationalization and regionalization of higher education. The main highlights of this has been European Union support for higher education in the ASEAN region, or EU Share Program. Since 2015, the programs provided opportunity for 590 students to participate in the intra-ASEAN or ASEAN-EU students mobility. 1,586 students has also participated in intra-ASEAN virtual collaboration online international learning scholarship program. We hope to see higher number of student participation as we deepen the ASEAN-EU strategic partnership. We are also very grateful to the strong support of the EU, who has contributed 15 million euro to the EU Share Program. I hope this will further enhance in the future, as highlighted by my colleagues, European Commission. This includes convening policy dialogue, providing technical assistance, capacity building, and developing relevant platform and mechanism to enhance harmonization and quality of ASEAN education system, including ASEAN Quality Assurance Framework. With the EU, we are also able to launch the State of Play of Higher Education in Southeast Asia report recently, which highlight key thematic area, including equity, diversity, and inclusion, internationalization and regionalization of higher education, and sustainability that need to be addressed to improve ASEAN higher education. Additionally, the roadmap of the higher education space and the ongoing initiative to develop ASEAN CMU Joint Declaration on Common Higher Education Space in Southeast Asia are also significant to our efforts in conceiving of an adaptive and sustainable approach and responding to the new reality of education worldwide. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we reflected on 45 years of ASEAN-EU dialogue relation this year and its elevation to the strategic partnership in 2020, I believe the EU contribution to higher education is a clear demonstration of our deepening partnership and common goal towards enhancing interregional collaboration between Southeast Asia and Europe. I would like to sincerely express my appreciation to the EU for the support in advancing the ASEAN higher education over the past 7 years. One of the most important benefits of the EU Share Program has been in bringing together all key stakeholders in Southeast Asia higher education sector to discuss, collaborate, collectively address the challenges of the region higher education and advance the harmonization of ASEAN higher education. Moving forward, I hope to see higher number of student participation in our share initiative and a more enhanced student mobility and exchanges in both regions. In particular, we believe and we agree and we hope that more students from EU will come and participate as well as study in the ASEAN university. This will help to increase the understanding of culture, norms, and value of the two regions, as well as deepen the ASEAN-EU strategic partnership. In particular, we look forward to the EU continuing support in the implementation of ASEAN Scholarship Program and mutual recognition of higher education in ASEAN and between ASEAN and the EU. I believe greater engagement between entities such as ASEAN University Networks and the European University Association, EUA, will generate more opportunities and the development of higher education system in both Asia and Europe. In closing, I look forward to building an excellent achievement of the EU Share program to advance people-to-people connectivity within ASEAN and between ASEAN and the EU through greater education collaboration and exchange in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Secretary General, as well, for telling us about the need for internationalization and regionalization of higher education cooperation, and also the importance of programs such as SHARE for people-to-people connectivity in higher education. I have to say, being educated is such an important message to send at this moment of uncertain times. As you said, Secretary General, higher education, catalyst for development, catalyst for competitiveness, and for human security. Thank you very much for those inspiring words. I've been told by the organizers that we will now have a photo of all our 3 VIP guests here. So I would urge the photographer to come forward and do a picture, and then we will move on to the rest of our day. So please. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Excellencies, for your participation and for giving us such a good introduction to EU-ASEAN Week. My part, thank you very much for coming, Commissioner, Minister, Secretary General, please. Have a successful week. You have hard days of work ahead. So good luck. Good luck. Take care. So as I promised, a lot of interesting things this morning. We've got off to a very good start. Very, very inspiring words by our 3 colleagues here, the Minister, the Secretary General, and the Commissioner, Urpilainen here as well, telling us about the importance of higher education. So we've had the policy inputs, we've seen the political perspective, and now I think we're moving to the practitioners. And delighted to say that we have a keynote address by Professor Cynthia Bautista, who is here. She's Vice President for Academic Affairs of the University of Philippines in Manila, Diliman in Manila. So let's give her a hand. Professor. And just to give you a little heads up on what happens next, Professor Bautista will speak, and then we will see a few videos, we'll watch a few videos, and then I will conduct a high-level panel discussion conversation with the practitioners. So, Professor Bautista, let me give you the floor here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Saida. Our EU Commissioner, Urpilainen, who had just left, Cambodia Minister Hang Chaon Naron, ASEAN Secretary General Dato Lim Jock Hoy, our partners in the EU support to higher education in the ASEAN region, the British Council, represented here by Samar Shah, ENCA, Anna Govel, DAAD Michael Horig, NAFIC Peter Tile, the overall team coordinator of SHARE Darren McDermott, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. I thank the organizers in EU Share for the privilege of sharing some reflections on the value of EU and ASEAN collaboration within the higher education and research space, and the need to build on the gains from such collaboration, which was mentioned already earlier, to tap opportunities for the future. In the interest of time, allow me to briefly address ASEAN-EU collaboration in recent years to 1, advance the lifelong learning framework, 2 draft roadmaps and implementation plans for ASEAN's higher education's goal of collaboration to address today's and the future's challenges, collaborating in collaborating in teaching and research, and 4 internationalization. On lifelong learning, more than a decade ago, I spent my sabbatical chairing a task force of the Commission on Higher Education with the remit to review the quality assurance policy of the Oversight Agency for Philippine Education's Philippines Higher Education. In the course of our review, the task force, which was cognizant of the paradigm shift in the 1990s from education to learning, to help individuals adapt the changing requirements of the labor market and better master the changing timeframes and rhythms of individual existence, firmly pushed for one, a government policy shift from focusing on inputs and knowledge to learning outcomes that include the holding of competencies or the ability of the learner to apply knowledge and skills in context, mindful of longer-term outcomes like employment or entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship with the corresponding quality assurance system. Advocacy, which eventually compelled me to accept a secondment from the university to the Commission on Higher Education, was met with extremely fierce resistance by higher education stakeholders. We spent millions of pesos on consultations and workshops. Still, the resistance did not abate until a timely EU share workshop in the Philippines showcased other ASEAN countries, specifically Malaysia and Thailand, making the policy shift earlier than the Philippines, and argued that the European education system had made this shift much earlier than ASEAN. I expressed my appreciation to our shared colleagues, and I think Michael was there, right after the workshop. Still, in hindsight, my appreciation deepened over time because that particular dialogue and the presence of our European colleagues forced the most resistant academic opinion leaders, some of whom graduated or took their PhDs from Germany, to open their minds, paving the way for the ongoing, albeit still challenging, paradigm shift in the Philippine higher education system to learning and lifelong learning. Having been contracted in my past life to actually be a general rapporteur to plenary synthesis and reports of initial workshops and conferences on lifelong learning by UNESCO's Institute of Lifelong Learning in Hamburg, which by the time I think was still called the Institute of Education, I have taken for granted that the paradigm shift to learning and lifelong learning that is now globally advocated as an inclusive response to a future of disruptions in the wake of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, climate change, and pandemics. That lifelong learning discourse is a European discourse that the European technical and adult education sectors advocated before higher education reluctantly adopted and eventually embraced the framework. The development of the ASEAN qualifications reference framework, patterned after the European qualifications framework, with learning outcomes as metric, and with one of the pioneers of the European qualifications framework as a consultant, has served as external stimulus or pressure for the paradigm shift in many member states that have referenced their national qualifications framework, like Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Indonesia, who are currently in the process of drafting or revising the referencing frameworks, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, and Laos. For universities within the ambit of the program assessments by the ASEAN University Network, assessors have taken pains to ensure the constructive alignment of programs and courses to learning outcomes and check on the employability of graduates making the assessments a teaching moment. So in effect, all of these pressures, perhaps even if one does not like to actually take it on, use the templates and eventually get the spirit of it and eventually also revise templates. Outside policy and program initiatives at the ASEAN level, collaborative programs between European and ASEAN universities and specific academic units have further reinforced the shift to lifelong learning. This must have been going on as a people-to-people or more appropriately academics-to-academics initiative that sometimes central administrations of the universities do not know, with a more salient discussion of learning outcomes for a greater employability or entrepreneurship in the last 15 years than in the previous years, maybe even the last 7 years, if I would like to attribute many of the changes to share. Just a month or two ago, our university's College of Law, which like most law colleges in the Philippines is known for requiring students to spend sleepless nights and are proud of it, pouring through voluminous materials, unmindful of the learning process and learning hours, have begun considering learning and learning hours in the course of meetings and visits to European universities with whom they have partnerships. On roadmaps and implementation plans, beyond paradigms and frameworks, the collaboration between ASEAN and Europe has significantly impacted translating frameworks into reality on the ground. EU Share, for instance, supported the refinement of the ASEAN Quality Assurance Framework, which incidentally already benefited from previous collaboration for several decades now between the initiators of the framework in Malaysia and the EU quality assurance experts. Share also supported, on the other hand, the development of roadmaps and action plans, such as the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on Higher Education Plan of Action, the ASEAN 5-year Work Plan on Education, the proposed Joint Declaration on a Common Higher Education Space in Southeast Asia, and the Roadmap on the ASEAN Higher Education Space 2025 and its 2-year implementation plan that envisions a resilient and sustainable ASEAN higher education space that enables greater harmonization and internationalization of the region's higher education systems. On the other hand, regional collective mechanisms for sustainability, such as the ASEAN Working Group on Higher Education Mobility, the Share Higher Education Harmonization Community of Practice through the Southeast Asia Ministers of Education Organization, or SIMIO-RIHED, and Share, and Southeast Asian Students and Alumni Networks promise to impact higher education institutions. On collaborative teaching and research, in his account of the development of the Southeast Asia RIHED in the HEAD's Foundation report, a new foundation report by the HEAD Foundation, a new report by the HEAD Foundation on higher education partnerships, Chulalongkorn's Professor Emeritus Supachai Yavaprabhas, who incidentally presented the Thailand situation in the milestone shared dialogue in Manila that I referred to as having changed the outlook of many of our adversaries, shared that from 2007 to 2010, while he headed SIMIO-RIHED, that SIMIO-RIHED focused on creating essential infrastructure, including a quality assurance network, credit transfer system, and research collaboration, among others. Accordingly, they, SIMIO-RIHED, learned about and adapted this mainly from the experience of the European higher education common space. So a lot of inspiration has come from Europe in this area. Since 2010, the Quality Assurance Network of ASEAN has grown, been influenced, and been supported by European partners. Some ASEAN member states have piloted credit transfer across the region, although most higher education institutions have not yet embraced them. So this is part of the challenge moving forward. Share remarkably introduced a digital ASEAN EU credit transfer platform within the ASEAN Mobility Program for the mobility between our regions. Collaborative research between European and ASEAN universities has been going on long before the last 2 decades. This is to be expected, given the European influence in the education systems of most ASEAN member states. Many of the academics in ASEAN pursue their graduate degrees in Europe. With strong research degree programs, my interactions in the ASEAN European Academic Network, or ASEAN UniNet, in the last 5 years suggest that our ASEAN counterparts who did their doctoral degrees in Europe eventually pursued collaborative research with their former professors and sent their students to the same universities to work with the professors and colleagues they worked with before. The Philippines is an outlier in this intergenerational research collaboration with the European universities, because we colonized by the United States, adopted an American education system. My exposure to collaborative research with a European university came in the 1980s, midway into my research career, when colleagues from the University of Amsterdam initiated a project I eventually coordinated that aimed to expose social science academics in my university to the European anthropological and sociological tradition. Today, our university has not only opened up master's and doctoral research degrees, which is very new in the Philippines, which is the common program elsewhere, but has a much higher number of faculty members with European graduate degrees and research collaborations. I think 2 of our colleagues are also here in this forum. I will be remiss if I do not disclose that the Sustainable Development Goals came to my awareness. I've heard of it, I knew it as a UN thing, but came to my awareness as goals to be really translated into reality to improve people's lives. If I do not mention a collaborative research between Erasmus University's Economics School and its Rotterdam School of Business, the School of Economics and College of Social Sciences of my university, and Thailand's Asian Institute of Technology, which I was one of the principal researchers for before my secondment to government. Focusing on the middle income country trap, our Dutch colleagues insisted on going beyond our achievements in big data analysis of the middle income country trap to pursue Chains for Change, action research to enable the poor's access to the value chain, a program we expanded and has continued to live beyond the project duration. Thanks to technology and the COVID-19 pandemic, what is relatively new are teaching programs with the promise of collaboration among academics across the ASEAN region. In my university, our faculty have on their own engaged in team teaching with colleagues from other ASEAN and international universities. And they team teach without telling anybody else, and then they just tell us that they're team teaching, and they divide their course into modules for this purpose, and they are happy. I think the students are happy because they're also exposed to different professors and different ideas rather than to just one. More institutionally, SHARE launched the Collaborative Online International Learning Virtual Exchange in ASEAN as an innovative pedagogy involving collaborative teaching and learning in 2 or more countries or universities facilitated by online communication. A month ago, I was privileged to have listened to the presentation of Paulina Panen on the online and virtual learning collaboration of Indonesia's cyber institution in an ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework workshop on quality assuring micro-credentials and online programs. The interest within that Zoom forum in collaboratively producing and curating materials was palpable in that online workshop. And this is something I think that we should be moving into in a large way as ASEAN and maybe together with Europe in the coming years. On internationalization and mobility, arguably, internationalization and the physical and virtual mobility of our students intra-ASEAN and between ASEAN and other regional communities like Europe has been the evident achievement of ASEAN programs like, most palpable, you can actually see it easily, like the Simeo Raihead Asian International Mobility for Students, or AIMS, ASEA UniNet, and SHARE, among others. SHARE, for instance, and this was already mentioned by our distinguished excellencies, has involved 590 ASEAN students in ASEAN and ASEAN EU in mobility and 1,586 students in the virtual exchange for collaborative online scholarships. Let me conclude by taking off from the ASEAN goal of enhancing internationalization, which I'm extending beyond its usual connotation in the public mind as mobility of students and faculty, to include various forms of collaborating with research and teaching colleagues and partners. Until recently, I had anchored my discussions of internationalization on globalization, on the breakdown of national borders and the development of regional economies, and therefore the competitiveness of such economies, albeit by nuancing globalization as the years went by with the rise of nationalisms. Thus, the importance of broadening the horizons of our students and academics within that framework so that they can become global citizens, in the case of ASEAN, so that they can instill an ASEAN identity and allow their ability to study and work in other ASEAN countries to fulfill the region's potential as highly competitive regional economy many years from now. Well, these aspirations remain, and we have been talking about why we have to move within ASEAN so that those who are expert in certain fields can work elsewhere in ASEAN, and in that process have the synergy to actually develop our economy. While these aspirations remain, the discourse on globalization and making countries globally competitive as an anchor are no longer as tenable in a world of disruptions, where the discontents of globalization, coupled with the dark side of technology and social media that foment division, hate, and distrust through the spread of fake news and alternative reality, undermine reason and Enlightenment values that underlie universities. Last month, while preparing for my sharing in a panel at the latest Temasek Foundation National University of Singapore's Program on Leadership for University Movement, I reflected on the Philippine universities' less vibrant internationalization programs compared to our neighbors, for instance, Singapore, which is an outlier, and Brunei, which is also an outlier, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. There are many reasons for this, and this is not the forum to go into it. My reflections led me to go back to my answers to a taken for granted question: why we are doing all this? I unpacked my usual response that alludes to the imperatives of globalization, are being part of an ASEAN community that is not yet really on the ground, or it's not yet felt by many of our ASEAN citizens on the ground, and the persistent challenges that the Sustainable Development Goals are helping mobilize the academic community to find solutions for. My unpacking led to thinking of the Philippines as an integral part of the ASEAN community, polity, and economy. While ASEAN as an organization has existed for more than 50 years, its challenges, including the need to balance geopolitical forces, have become more complex. Addressing these challenges require an awareness of the region and identification with an ASEAN community. This has taken a while to develop in academia because different colonial histories of the members of this community constrained the orientation of our scholars towards each other in the region. We were more oriented towards the countries of our colonizers. So research collaborations and targeted programs to enhance a sense of Asia and the ASEAN region facilitated this awareness, creating formal and informal networks of university-based scholars, researchers, and public intellectuals. For us to be oriented towards ASEAN, there are many programs, Asia for ASEAN, research, Ford Foundation, the Japan Foundation actually supported this. The geopolitical challenge confronting the region is indisputable. ASEAN will not survive its next 50 years unless it can negotiate the turbulent geopolitical waters. Amidst the turbulence, however, our marine scientists have been working consistently and closely with Vietnamese marine scientists with whom our governments have territorial border issues. This means the higher education sector, our universities in particular, must take on a role that transcends geopolitical issues and other divisive narratives. Universities must help build a zone of trust, communities that collaborate to address common challenges. Thinking back to what we gained from collaborative research, which can apply to collaborative student and faculty exchange, to the exposure to other cultures, etc., I shared in that panel in NUS that all the colleagues I worked with from ASEAN and other regions, including the Dutch in Europe, those who I worked with in our youth, we all aged together academically and personally. We worked together continuously. We trusted each other. We became friends, despite differences in our cultures and political systems. We did trust each other. And throughout the many decades, we really aged together. Some of us had passed on, but that's how it was. I began to think of internationalization and access to its quality programs by many more of our students who have not been reached because of socioeconomic limitations as a means of serving humanity by building zones of trust and communities committed to the search of truth to solve the problems that plague our world. This framing, although globalization is still a frame, but this framing, similar to or even more than the framing of a highly competitive ASEAN economy, stresses the need to develop further and expand programs that enhance accessibility, quality, and harmonization of areas that are harmonizable, which continue to be our goals in ASEAN, and I suppose in our ASEAN-EU relationship. So I congratulate ASEAN and Europe for remarkable achievements in the last 45 years, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, and for share in the last 7 years, really remarkable. So may our regions, both ASEAN and Europe, move from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Bautista, for sharing your very personal experiences in the higher education cooperation between EU and ASEAN and the challenges and the opportunities you face. Let's now watch the two short videos that will talk to us a little bit about the SHARE program and Erasmus+, and then I will conduct the conversation with our panelists on how we can actually further enhance EU-ASEAN partnership in higher education. Let's watch from here.
SHARE is an EU-funded project with an overarching objective to strengthen regional cooperation, enhance the quality, competitiveness, and internationalization of ASEAN higher education institutions and students, contributing to an ASEAN community. The SHARE program has enhanced cooperation between the EU and ASEAN to create a common higher education space in Southeast Asia. SHARE assisted ASEAN in developing the higher education components of the ASEAN Education Work Plan 2021-2025. Based in Jakarta, Indonesia, SHARE has been implemented since 2015 in collaboration with the European Union delegation, the ASEAN Secretariat, and regional higher education partners in Southeast Asia.
Erasmus Plus is the European Union's programme that supports primarily education, not only in Europe, but also outside. It can be a vehicle to strengthen cooperation and links between the EU and ASEAN. All ASEAN countries can take part in these international opportunities. All 10 countries are involved in student and staff exchange between the EU and Asia. This has brought over 9,000 ASEAN nationals to Europe and sent over 5,000 Europeans to ASEAN. We sent Italian master's students to Laos. And we brought Filipino staff to Latvia. But it's not all just about mobility and individuals. Capacity building projects are based on partnerships of European and Asian universities. They work on two levels, strengthening university teaching and practice, like this project, developing frameworks for degree programs. But they also develop skills that tackle global challenges, climate crisis, and other global gateway challenges. This project is aimed at developing recycling skills for plastics. Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters also develop a key skills set by a consortium of universities. Tropimundo, a program about biodiversity, always includes a semester in a tropical country, and a Malaysian partner delivers part of the course. The scholarships are popular with Southeast Asian students. Jean Monnet actions are about EU integration, but this regional focus is informative for ASEAN countries too, like this Jean Monnet chair in Singapore. So Erasmus Plus is about strengthening higher education cooperation between the EU and ASEAN. But it's also strengthening cooperation more widely between our two regions.
Right. Thank you very much for that. So now we know a little bit more about SHARE and Erasmus Plus, and it's my pleasure now to start the conversation with our panelists. May I ask the panelists, so Ms. Antoneta Angelova-Krasteva, Director for Innovation, Digital Education and International Cooperation, DG Education and Culture, please take your seat. Cedar San, alumnus of SHARE Scholarship Program, please take your seat as well. Professor Ronald Holzager, Director, Groningen University Research Center for Southeast Asia and ASEAN. Please, Ron, take a seat. This is mine. That's the only one that can't be taken. Professor Cynthia Bautista, come back. Vice President, University of the Philippines, please. And last but definitely not least, Chris Humphrey, Executive Director of the EU-ASEAN Business Council. Right at the end, Chris. Right, so we're going to, I'm going to have a conversation with our panelists here, wonderful panelists, exploring a bit further some of the points that were made earlier by the Commissioner, by the Minister, and also by the ASEAN Secretary General, and also, of course, what Cynthia was telling us about her personal experiences. At the end of our conversation, we will take questions because you've been very patient and you've been listening, and I'm sure there are lots of ideas in your head. So put your thinking caps on and we will try and take 2 or 3 questions towards the end just before the coffee break. So, and also for those joining online, once again, of course, please go on chat and exchange with us. And everybody, I hope you're on the social platforms as well. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with you, Antonetta, and of course from DG Education and Culture. And as we've heard this morning from several speakers, the EU has been investing over the years in higher education projects and programs. And all of us are wondering, when did it begin? What was the driver? And what are the outcomes you've achieved?
First of all, good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today and to discuss the EU-ASEAN cooperation in the field of higher education. And it's been already said a lot. Let me start from where we ended, actually, with the presentation of what the Erasmus program is about and what it includes in terms of international cooperation activities and the share project. So indeed, let me underline once again that our EU-funded investment in higher education is a key part of our overall cooperation between the EU and the ASEAN region. And it is hugely important because it puts a emphasis on higher education, allowing to have exchanges between staff to work together on common projects. And the SHARE project is indeed a wonderful example of how this could further extend and develop exchanges, cooperation between the ASEAN countries. This is the first part. And the second dimension I would like to underline here is indeed the possibility to cooperate on wider issues of common interest for our 2 regions. And it is indeed very important to further foster cooperation on issues related to the sustainable development, which are hugely important. We heard Commissioner Urpilainen, but also the other distinguished speakers underlining the importance of working together, not only on hard infrastructure, but really investing in soft infrastructure, which includes education, cooperation in education. We just had the video, which very nicely actually illustrated the international cooperation activities we already have with the ASEAN countries. And the previous speakers already underlined the potential for future cooperation. We do believe that we have a very solid basis looking at our past cooperation. Very briefly, let me underline where we see this potential. First of all, starting with the capacity building. We do believe that this can further foster cooperation and create partnerships. We see partnerships between academic institutions in Europe, which partner with such collaborations, partnerships from the ASEAN region. And we see that the ASEAN countries are 60% of all the projects of capacity building in higher education, which shows a very good already level with the potential to further grow. What is important here is to further foster cooperation between the academic institutions, but also to work on policy issues and matters, which are contributing to further expanding and improving the capacity of the higher education institutions, but also of their governance structures. It gives also the possibility to focus on very specific issues of common interest. It was already mentioned that the Erasmus Mundus action is also very popular with the students from the Southeast Asian region. We have more than 1,400 students who have had their joint or double or multiple degree in European universities since 2014. Certainly there is big interest, and there is still the potential to grow in the coming years. Last but not least, let me also mention the credit mobility. As you know, this is the international version of the higher education mobility we have here in Europe. We saw the figures, more than 9,000 students from the South Asian region coming to Europe, and more than 5,600 coming to Europe. And as it was said by the previous speakers, we would like to see more students from Europe also going to the South Asian universities. Let me underline once again, this solid basis is indeed very important to further grow the cooperation between the academic institutions, but also to develop the individual links and cooperation. From all this cooperation, this is the basis to further help the higher education institutions modernize their teaching and learning, to foster cooperation between people, but also to use this as a potential for future cooperation. I would like to mention that beyond the Erasmus Plus program, which is a driver of cooperation, the European education area, which is extremely important for further integration in the field of education in Europe, could be a source of inspiration as well as for the South Asian region and for future cooperation. It is based on teaching, on further improving the skills of young people, but also of education staff. This could be particularly informative also for the ambitions of the South Asian region with regard to building the higher education space and further developing roadmaps in that regard. And of course, further develop people-to-people contacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Indeed, you're absolutely right, because those were the points that were made by the ASEAN gentlemen who were here, the minister from Cambodia, but also the ASEAN Secretary General, talking very much about ASEAN's hopes and plans, the roadmap that they're building for regional higher education space area cooperation in any case. And a point that Cynthia, of course, made very much as well about when countries and students are working together, geopolitics becomes less relevant. And it's really about collaboration between people. Thank you very much indeed. Let me turn to you, Sida. You are an alumnus of the SHARE program. And I was wondering, how did it start? How did you become part of the SHARE program? What were your experiences? We need to hear from you. And also, what are your hopes for the future?
A very good morning. First of all, thank you for giving these opportunities, and very good morning to all of you here and also those who are watching us online. I'm Tita from Cambodia. I'm a SHARE alumni batch 2 to Jakarta, Indonesia, to BNUS University. I did my mobility under SHARE scholarship program back in 2017. And since then, my life has completely changed. Let me tell you how it's happened. I am who I am today. I owe so much to SHARE program. As a girl from rural area in Cambodia, back then I have not know much about the world. But after the program, I acquired cross-cultural awareness, self-confidence, international adaptability, and most importantly to me is a regional and international friendship that I cherish so much. In so many ways, SHARE program has empowered me as a woman. I have become a confident and independent woman. And furthermore, I also thank SHARE for allowing me to deeply engage in people-to-people connectivities in intra-ASEAN and also beyond. I never feel this connected and closer to SHARE community. And because of them, because of the mobility, I feel inspired. Their support, their inspiration inspired me to engage, to continue engage in people and people connectivity wherever I go. And because of these communities, they are inspired me to never give up on higher education. That's why I end up in South Korea in my master degree. I believe that moving to new countries is no doubt always a challenge, always a new challenge, but thanks to these mobilities that I did in Indonesia in 2017, I beat the challenge, the stress, the worries once in 2017, and of course I did it again. At this point in my life, I am confident that I'm ready for any challenges that are going to happen. I wish my word, and I wish there is a machine that can record every changes, every contribution that this program has contributed to our life, our the alumni's life. But of course, we cannot have that machine to really like summarize why this is so important to us as a shared alumni. And you know, on the 6th of December 2022, there was a moment that very heartbroken for us as alumni, because SHARE has officially announced its closure after 7 years of implementation. So for many people, this is a success, but it was very heartbroken for us as alumni. Why? Because SHARE has benefited around 2,200 people in ASEAN. But because this program is no longer exists, we feel sorry for the next generation who will not be able to experience the life-changing experience that we have experienced. But SHARE is a legacy. We are the legacy of SHARE. We gained so much in those 7 years of implementation. And as alumni, we will continue to live up to this legacy. 2022 is just a number if we just see it. But for us, this 200 people, it's not just a number. This amount of alumni that have experienced by SHARE, we're going to bring a lot of impact, a lot of positivity to the world. And I do hope that in the future, there will be similar program that the next generation, especially young women in ASEAN, can personally experience this life-changing experience like us. And last but not least, I would like to use this opportunity to finally and say this to every stakeholders, all the team that put so much energy and effort, especially the trust that they have in us. We thank you. I know this is never enough to thank you guys. The effort and the energy that you have put, and they just never the right word to thank you all. And I know it is very emotional and it's hard to express, but I hope that all of you here feel proud of what you have done for us. And I hope that you're also proud of yourself, because you contributed to something big, something that it means so much to all the alumni and those who have been part of this journey. I know that I cannot mention all of your names here. It's gonna be 200 pages list.
At that time, but
yes. but Arif and the team from SHARE, to all of those who I have met in Jakarta during my mobilities, I sincerely thank you very much. And I also thank my beloved country, Cambodia, and also my host, Mobility Jakarta, for these opportunities and a life-changing experience. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Sita, for really speaking from the heart and telling us what emotionally this SHARE program has brought to you and your hopes for the future. Thank you very much for joining us and truly making us understand the power of SHARE and all the different ways in which you've benefited. And as you said, you've changed. Ron, Sita's a hard act to follow. I think you'll agree. But want to hear from you as well from Groningen University. Sita's given us the point of view of students. And I was wondering, universities like yours, what was the interest in joining and what are the benefits that you've accrued from it?
Thank you.
Shada.
Thank you very much. I'm Professor Ron Holtzacker from the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, in the fields of international relations and planning. And I'm the director of our Groningen Research Center for Southeast Asia and ASEAN, ASEAN. You know, last night we got together with a group of the SHARE students that are here, were brought to Brussels for this event. We sat together last night. Many of the people that we had dinner with are here today. And I really encourage you during our coffee break now, make sure that you go up to the leaders of various countries that are here. Tell them also about your experience that you had on exchange, these personal stories. You know, these are big institutions, the EU and ASEAN, but these personal stories are something that we really want to tell. You know, my main message being today on stage is how the EU and ASEAN, representing our citizens and our societies, they have placed universities in a special position that I think allows us to confront and contribute to global challenges. I think universities play a special role in allowing some longer term thinking in our societies. It's not the same kind of election cycle and 24-hour news cycle, but special institutions, and the students in SHARE have been part of this, of confronting global challenges. We mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. My PhD candidates are very involved with the Sustainable Development Goals. Last year, one of my PhD candidates from Indonesia, Isti Hidiati, she won, these are very high quality students. She won Best Dissertation of the Year at the University of Groningen for a dissertation about inequalities in mobility, comparative research looking at both Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur. So also, we're interested in fostering research across the ASEAN countries. The next project that I'm working on now is with Gajah Mada University in Indonesia and Thammasat University in Thailand, a conference in mid-March focused on synergies between the climate change agenda and sustainable development, the SDGs, and specifically focused on the implementation by cities. We know that national governments sign these treaties, the Paris Climate Change Accords, the Global Goals 2030, but all these countries, they are going to continue to grow. The SDGs are very important, but we also have to take on this global challenge of climate. And oftentimes it's not just national governments involved, it's cities. And cities are also closer to citizens. So this kind of connectivity that the EU-ASEAN is encouraging, I think, is very important for the role of universities in this longer term thinking and confronting the global challenges. And it starts with each individual, and that's the story that you told. And I'm really glad that you shared that today with us. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you also. For highlighting how personal relations feed into a bigger picture of higher education, long-term thinking that we desperately need in today's very, very unpredictable and volatile world to confront the global challenges. And as you said, climate change starts at the personal level, starts at the city level, municipality level. So very important thoughts that you brought into this conversation. Cynthia, you gave us an indication of what's happening in EU-ASEAN higher education initiatives, and sometimes the resistance you felt, and sometimes you were encouraged, sometimes you were less encouraged. But from the University of Philippines angle, what were the main outcomes that you can share with us? Very briefly, we're running quite late in terms of coffee breaks, etc. But I'm going to continue this conversation and take a few questions from you as well. So please, Cynthia.
So I won't go into the research collaboration because that's one area I think that an area in terms of the problems. What share, I'll allude to share. What share actually taught me, because I was in the first part of share. And share at that point was really focusing very much, or at least helping encourage our institutions, including the University of the Philippines, to actually shift to learning outcomes. I pay attention to this shift. Why? Because all of the discussion of 21st century skills, that we have to have thinking skills that also include being able for the next generation to be able to live with uncertainty or to think despite uncertainty, able to move apart from being critical, interacting skills, which also includes negotiating because you have to work with groups. All of these skills, self-awareness, integrity, persistence in the face of difficulties, and leadership, all of this demand a certain way of teaching. And in many ways, it was shared that actually, no matter how much you want to instill the skills, if the traditional way of teaching remains, and it is very difficult for old universities with a critical mass of experts who actually were reared and schooled in a certain way and who want to school the next generation in that way. It's very difficult to actually prepare our students for a very disruptive world, including the world where they will have to have employability. And I think the world is changing very fast. They need to be employable or become entrepreneurs. It's not just being employed, but developing their own way of surviving. It's very difficult to train our students that way without the understanding and instilling that spirit of shifting learning outcomes. I thank Share in particular, because Share, I am not joking, when Share actually, through that one conference, shook the way of thinking of many, including my colleagues who are experts and known in the country and sometimes known internationally, who have not really understood what it means to go learning outcomes based. And then that I think I would attribute to Share. But employability, just last week I was in NUS again with this time. It was a Times Higher Education thing. And our panel was, do we teach the next generation? Are we teaching them for the future? And there's one very interesting question, and the interesting question from the floor, I think this was a person doing work in HR and in industry, is, okay, you're training them to be employable. We're still a long way off, we're still far from being able to teach in that way, that they have all of these skills. But employability is not all of it. They can be employable with all of those skills, but we will not employ them because they have a certain attitude problem, they have mental health issues. And then that question was really the soft skills, that in a sense, the way we teach must really change, and even the mentoring of the next generation, that our best teachers can never, ever be the best teachers of a generation that has a very short attention span, and a generation that's so media savvy. Technically savvy.
Thank
but
you.
I guess that will bring us to
Yes,
the
exactly.
industry academic linkage problem.
Yes, but I will ask the question if you don't mind, because I do want to ask him. But first of all, let me just say to you, so what we've heard really is from the professors as well, that it's not just been for the student, it's been a learning experience for teachers as well, and teaching, as you said, negotiating skills. And, you know, I'm a visiting professor at the College of Europe, so I know the importance of engaging with students and teaching them that in this disruptive world, it's not the old way of thinking or acting, you really have to move forward. So if Share has been sharing that with you, I think this is a remarkable achievement, which brings me related to Cynthia's question to you, Chris. From the business point of view, EU-ASEAN Business Council, of course, a huge player, huge economic actor in ASEAN, investing there, trading with the region. People like Theda, they're an amazing asset for your companies and employability, as the word was said. So your thoughts on the skills and the achievements and what we've heard about SHARE as contributing to advancement of ASEAN and the EU, frankly.
Yeah, thanks, Shada. I must say, if all the youth in ASEAN and even here in Europe have the passion that Theda showed this morning, I think we can all retire happily, us old folks, and leave the world in a much better place. So thank you for your enthusiasm. I think I should say, first of all, that higher education is, of course, absolutely vital for all of our futures. It's vital for industry going forward. The people-to-people linkages that SHARE and Erasmus Plus have created, I think, should never be underestimated. And they go in both directions. It's not just about students from Southeast Asia coming to Europe and learning. It's about students here in Europe going to Southeast Asia and learning. And it's not just the formal learning either. It's the informal learning. When you're overseas, the things you pick up, the cultural issues, the understanding of different cultures and perspectives as well becomes very, very important. Often more important in the views of many business leaders than the formal degree you'll come out with at the end of it. You'll study your degree. I did my degree too many years ago to count, and I don't probably use it every day. But the things I picked up during my education by studying overseas and by then working overseas are actually probably far more important. And that is why I think SHARE itself has been a fantastic program. It's a shame it's coming to an end, but it was good to hear the Commissioner talking about a new program coming out in the future. And even better, that program in the future is going to focus a lot more on vocational training, the TVET issues that the Secretary General was mentioning as well, the skills of the future. Here at the Council, we do a business survey every year. And this year we asked about our members and European companies operating in ASEAN, what's missing in terms of skill sets? What are you looking for in terms of future employability of people? And I think the answers from that survey go to the heart of what we're discussing here today. They want people who have a more flexible approach, a more mobile approach going forward as well. They want people who can think outside the box. And the Secretary was talking about the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework and trying to change some of the way education systems are being run in Southeast Asia. Traditionally, a lot of rote learning in many countries, and that's got to change because we need people who are more adaptable, who can think outside the box. And businesses want people with an international viewpoint, not just sitting inside their box, inside their own country. They want people who've been out and experienced other things around the world at the same time. So people like Theda suddenly become much more employable from an international MNC point of view. And then the people-to-people bit. The youth today are tomorrow's leaders. It's a bit of a cliche, but it is true.
Actually, they're today's leaders.
Well, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, you probably are right. And they can teach old folks like me a thing or two as well about what needs to happen, certainly when it comes to digital skills as well. I think just lastly, I think the thing I really want to point out is the way education is going and the changes that are needed. And I think programs that we've been talking about here today and people like Theda being on these programs, we do need different skills for the future. One of the things our survey highlighted was a big gap in digital skills, whether it's coders, programmers, digital marketeers, but also we need people who have the right skills in the future to drive things like climate change, but also to understand that sustainability is just not about the climate. It is about other areas as well, access to work, clean water, access to food, etc. Overall, for employers, and you're asking the question, they want people like this young lady here and the others of you in this room. People have been out, been experienced, have learned things, not just the formal things, but the informal things, and actually are looking to make a difference and can think outside the box.
Thank you very much, Chris. I like that, formal and informal skills. I think all of you, thank you very much for your intervention. So as I promised, I'm happy to take a few questions. We have a little bit of time for questions, and maybe Louise, you can tell me if anything has come online, any comments or marks. Otherwise, in this room, if you have the time, if you want to ask anything follow up. Not really. Anyone want to share a personal experience? Yes, of course. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. My colleagues and I recently completed Young Indo-Pacific Forum on Sunday, which was relating to disinformation in the Indo-Pacific region in education. So I agree, knowledge is power, but power can be used for unfriendly purposes as well. We had talk about digital infrastructure and digital innovation and things like this, but I'm curious as to how we intend to stave off the potential risks that come with threats to the sanctity of education and information, if you will.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I think you put up your hand as well. Yes, please. Yes, we have a microphone, so yeah.
I'll first say magandang umaga. I'm from the Philippines. My name is Joel Aquino. I'm currently taking up my master's in tourism at the Universidad de Girona, and I'm a proud Erasmus Plus scholar. Coming from the tourism sector, the aviation sector in my country, I work for the airline industry. It's such a big, and this is a reflection and not a question, a big learning opportunity for me to understand tourism in a bigger scale. When you talk about tourism, you talk about people, you talk about connectivity, you talk about mobility, and they're very much important in tourism. In ASEAN, tourism is a very big industry, especially for us developing countries. So it's very important to understand how Europeans look at tourism. And we're talking about now, not just about sustainable tourism, but we're also talking about regenerative tourism already. Sustainable tourism is just how you keep things as they are. But regenerative tourism is about how to make them better. And I think through education, through higher education, people connectivity, learning from each other, we can all learn from each other and how to make things better.
Thank you very much indeed. So sustainable tourism, and anyone coming in with a final remark, quick and snappy? No. Okay. So I will give the floor back to the panelists. No more than 2 minutes each, please, preferably 1.5 minutes to answer the question about disinformation, which is crucial, I think, and also sustainable development and tourism. And then for me, if you'd like to, just respond very quickly to the idea of what happens next. What would be ideally, if there was a magic tree here somewhere, magic wand, what would be the one thing you'd want to do? So Antoinette, let me kick off with you.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me start with the digital education and actually the risks and challenges that are linked to it. Indeed, a lot has been done and it is being implemented at European level. Digital Education Action Plan, which has also a strong international dimension and where the purpose for us is actually to share knowledge and good experience with our international partners. Because digital disinformation, digital literacy are highly important, but also the use of artificial intelligence and data in education and training. Let me just mention that on the EU side, the European Commission has recently adopted 2 sets of guidelines, indeed, to support the teachers in this area and the sector as such. And where we do believe that these sets of guidelines could be also a source of inspiration for international partners. About the magic thing, I don't know whether with one word one can answer this question, but for me, it remains hugely important to further indeed foster this people-to-people contacts and develop the individual links. Only on that basis we can further build institutional relations and have impact at systemic level. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you very much. Ron, yes?
To start about the importance of disinformation, I think one of the things universities have to provide is a broad education, so not just focused on a particular discipline or a narrow topic, but about broader elements, interdisciplinary, so that they learn that there's multiple voices in the society, and also sources of information really vary, and it's very important to have different sources of information. On the topic of sustainable tourism, I think One of the things we're all interested in is, getting people out of just the hotels and just the restaurants in the hotels, but, meetings with people, seeing life in the cities, in the villages, in towns, the historical experience, the contemporary experience. A lot of times tourists can be very interested in history. We also need to introduce them to the contemporary situation that many people face in around the world. We all live in the modern contemporary world, so it's not just about history. History informs our present, but the present is also very important. Thank you.
Yes, Theda?
So I will go with the magic tree because I like magic. As an alumni, like I mentioned earlier, I want something magic. So I want the magic tree to create more vibrant intra or inbound or outbound mobility within ASEAN and Europe, so that many people like me can experience their mobilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Theda.
Okay, I guess the disinformation thing is a big challenge for us. Exactly how you may train students to be critical so that they would know. See, when I talked about our enlightenment values of reason, rationality, and science, that is really threatened now with all of the disinformation. So our problem is, how do we now hone the capacity for students to actually know or distill the truth from and separate the truth from false information? But that also requires digital literacy of the faculty, because you have to know the algorithm of Facebook, you have to know the algorithm of Twitter, you have to know all of these algorithms to know exactly how it's done, so that that can also be shared with the students. Now, on the question of what we want, the magic wand, I guess I'd go now with my new framing of zone of trust.
Okay.
I guess the more we have people, and I think expanding whatever SHARE has done and whatever other programs have done is the way to go. The more people we have who exchange, the more TIDAs we have who go out and deal with others, is how universities and higher education can actually go beyond all of the constraints that are imposed on us by our governments, by geopolitical forces, etc. So more SHARE in another phase.
Okay.
And
thank you. Yeah, more SHARE. Okay.
Chris. On the disinformation question, unfortunately, we live in an increasingly polarized world where people can't seem to have a civil conversation around things they disagree on. You get extreme left and extreme right growing, certainly in the West and elsewhere in the world as well. So what we need actually is a true open discourse. We need people who can sit down and have a discussion. Whether you agree or don't agree doesn't mean the other person's wrong and you're right. Sometimes there's a middle ground. But that also, of course, relies on the institutions where people are learning and the countries where they are learning, allowing such open discourse to happen as well. On the sustainable tourism point, I'll keep that short. Everything Ron said, I agree with, so that's very easy.
Good.
I have two, though, Magic Tree
You've
requests.
got a minute.
I'll be very quick. First, I hope the successor program to SHARE is at least half as successful as SHARE was. If it is, it'll be fantastic. If it's as good, brilliant. The last one is on mobility. There is a problem with mobility, particularly for students or for those entering the workforce, particularly in ASEAN, and ASEAN needs to get its act together on this. It needs to allow people to move around with the ASEAN region much easier. As an organization based in Singapore, I'm looking to hire a Filipino and a Thai person at the moment, and I know I won't get them into Singapore. One on an internship and one for a lower level job.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. We heard the policymakers this morning and they made some very, very good statements, food for thought. But we've also heard now of the human stories, the engagement that we have brought into SHARE and the higher education program. So I really, really am grateful to bringing this human interest into a conversation that's desperately needed. As I said, I took part in these discussions 8 years ago, and it's a real pleasure. And I have to say, a source of satisfaction that things have gone along so well, and that I'm here again to hear all the success stories of what you've achieved on a personal level and on a professional level. So it's time for coffee. Before that, there'll be a the photographer is there, so she'll take a picture. Time for coffee. I'm sorry, only 15 minutes allowed. You'll have time over lunch to talk and network. So please be back in exactly 15 minutes. See you back. Bye-bye.
Can we,
Allowed me to extend my appreciation to the SHARE program and its partners for organizing the Policy Dialogue number 15.
The EU delegation to ASEAN is delighted to witness another milestone in the development of the higher education sector in ASEAN. That is the launch of the roadmap of the ASEAN Higher Education Space 2025.
Our program, which started in 2015, is the most comprehensive support and initiative on higher education in the Southeast Asian region.
Many months of preparation, I would say, with many different partners, many different actors, contributors, panelists, our local team here in Hanoi.
With the SHARE program coming in, putting significant efforts to build capacity, promote higher education's role in the region.
As you know, the higher education landscape is facing rapid change, and we have an urgent need to redefine the common space in Southeast Asian higher education. The roadmap that was launched today and the corresponding implementation plan provides a really important opportunity to strengthen the partnerships in higher education that we have.
We need to transform. We need a new vision to kind of re-energize our commitment at this point before we get to 2030. So I think this near-term commitment to 2025 is really going to, accelerate the need for collaboration and really build forward new solutions for higher education.
What the roadmap does through the ASEAN Working Group on Higher Education Mobility is bring some cohesion, bring some consensus, and bring a more collective approach on how we approach higher education, international higher education in this region together.
The EU partners have been a big part of bringing everyone to the table, but ultimately it's the member states that are going to have to decide which parts of this agenda do they want to pick up and implement and carry forward in terms of governance.
And always I receive the request that university leaders or top managers, they would like to participate or hear something like we are doing at the SHARE Policy Dialogue.
I would say that SHARE scholarship is a flagship scholarship.
I think it's a great program for people who want to experience a new culture and also want to learn something new in a new country.
Our students can share their experiences in learning.
We can actually make a lot of friends, learn a lot of knowledge, and it all can happen simultaneously within our home.
In the next policy dialogue, we are likely to see Semir Raihed taking the lead and gathering together the partners in the region.
thing that I found most memorable after my mobility period is networking. Opportunity to meet more people or more students around the ASEAN countries. So that's really, really precious opportunity.
My exchange contributed to ASEAN Secretariat and also making me realize about the differences and the similarities of our cultures and languages, and also looking forward to the future plans of being in the ASEAN region.
Share is like a jumping platform for us to discover more about our strengths, our capabilities, and to what greater extent that we can be better than now, better than before. So I believe that it really helps me to become more confident and be determined of what I'm doing, and to be agile, to be able to work in a team regardless the backgrounds of the people that we're working with.
Now I'm working in Vietnam, but just a couple of years back, I was working in the Kingdom of Thailand. I'd say that share somehow contributes to the formation of identity, which goes beyond and above national boundaries.
Apart from my English, I think I learned how to be open-minded. It really helped when I first moved to a different region in Thailand to work as a teacher. Knowing different cultures also helped my students see the world beyond Thailand.
Mobility program, I joined Islamic community trip as well as many other trips with my Burmese, Korean, Indonesian and American friends from different states, villages and culture, which inspired me to work with a diversity of people from different background and culture, which I am doing today as a community outreach manager in an international IT company with a diverse employee and a work environment.
We sit in our comfort zone, we are happy with what we do, and it's good to be exposed to other things.
Build one competency on top of each other without having to decide a complex competency all in one go.
The developments and impact of micro-credentials go beyond national context, contributes to the regional context, so that we can work together across regions and hopefully make it operationalized across the world.
Micro-credential program is a complementary part to regular on-campus learning and serve to fill the gaps in the skills provided in college with those required in the world of work and industry.
Life is what happens to you while you're busy making plans. Now, if you transfer this to the topic of micro-credential or higher education, it's basically don't talk too much about them, do it.
the world has changed, and we are now living in a very much digital space, and digital transformation has changed the way we live, and digital connectivity needs to be addressed and utilized to promote the development of a stronger, sustainable and peaceful global community.
My name is Peter van Tuyl. Well, I think it is a truly important event.
The summit here this week is the great opportunity for the students or the so-called alumni of so many scholarship programs and so many cross-border collaboration to meet and to share their ideas, concerns, and the future prospect of the collaboration between Southeast Asia or ASEAN region and the European Union.
Great opportunity for young people from different parts of the world to come together. It's a connective space. It's an inspirational space as well. It's also a platform, for learning, cross-pollination of ideas and exchanges. And for me, it was an extremely positive experience because even though I was invited as a speaker, I'm still just a student. So for me, it might sometimes be a bit intimidating to meet all those people who have tons of expertise, who have really prestigious positions. But everybody here is so open. I really get the feeling that they value the opinions of students, and it's very easy for us to get opportunities to share our opinion. And so that, in my opinion, created an amazing dialogue, to be honest. The way everybody's just getting inspired by each other. That was a very, very positive opinion, not just for me, but I've heard it from all the other people as well. So yeah, we appreciate that a lot.
I think it's long overdue. Really waited for this day for a very long time. Naturally, the pandemic didn't go away as quickly as we would have liked it to. It's important to take the opportunity to gather our current students, be it through virtual exchange or our past students and our physical exchange alumni.
The summit here is very intriguing for me. I think it's a very good opportunity for the alumni from ASEAN and European countries because we've got to learn the digital transformation. Since you guys already know that COVID-19 outbreak has changes a lot of our lives, it would be very privileged and try to uphold to see the ASEAN and EU student and alumni network maybe in the future.
Hello everyone, my name is Maybe and my full name is Sinsawan Santasar, and right now I'm studying about communication, media and science, specialization in media informatics at the University of Dunaj Rose in Hungary. Actually, I got a scholarship to study here, but all thanks to the scholarship because I finished my study scholarship before I came here because I was born and grew up in a town outside the capital of Laos, and it was difficult for me to learn English. So I learned by myself, and thankfully that I received the scholarship from EU-ASEAN, and then I had a chance to study abroad. After that, I set my goal. I wanted to study in Europe, and then I applied for the scholarship and got selected. And I will be graduating this month. So I gathered the youth in the city and I tried a workshop with them, to inform them, to let them to understand about how difficult the children in the countryside face especially educational system. Then after that, we decided to brainstorm the idea with many activities from the youth in the city that they say, we wanted to create this for them. And then we went to that village, like the countryside. We finished the activities in 4 days, if I'm not mistaken, 4 days with 100 students there. And after that, we still think about other activities because, you know, we are youth and we were very energetic. So we were like, we should come up with more activities to help. This time, we wanted to help the youth in the city. So after that project, we created the project called the Guiding Helper because we also saw the difficulty for students, like high school students, when they graduated, they had no idea what to study, and later on talking about the city outside the capital. So I understood that problem very well because I faced that problem myself. I started my bachelor degree since 2015. I couldn't finish it because of this problem. But I didn't even know like what I'm doing or what I'm going to do after my graduation. So I found out that it's very difficult for a lot of people too. So I decided to create a project called a Guiding Helper that will guide students who had no idea what they're going to do by inviting guest speakers that they are studying in certain fields, and for those who are working in that field to come and create workshop together and guiding them. So that's how my second project ended before I come to Hungary. The next project will be about environmental issues because I just came back from the COP26 in Glasgow. Not only in Asia, but all over the world should see this issue as the most important issue. Actually, many countries are trying to fight this problem together, but still, I think it's still not enough. But in COP26, I had a chance to talk to young leaders as well as a person from the ministry from that country too. Actually, when I brainstorm this, I know that the most challenging is about to cooperate with other organizations because I found out that do something sustainable, you have to cooperate with INGO in my country as well as the government, and it's very difficult to do so, as you said. But I still want to give it a try. At first, it may seem unrealistic. I always tell myself that it's unrealistic, it's impossible. Before I come to study in Europe, I was in the community that didn't, I would study abroad one day. Start from the very beginning. I studied English by myself, and then I received scholarship from EU-ASEAN, and that's how my life changed. I would like to ask you to believe in yourself, every single one of you. I know that you are listening. If you want to do something, and not only for yourself, for your community, for your country as well, just go for it. Set your goal and believe in yourself. And I know that it will come true one day. I know that my voice is very moral compared to what I'm going to do. It's very big. When it's very simple.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Okay.
In an ever-changing world, universities are constantly innovating. Globalization leads them to internationalize their faculty and student body. The transition towards greener and more digital economies is driving the evolution of their curricula. Today, the Erasmus program provides funding all around the world to institutions eager to scale up their transformation. Why not join them? Go to Erasmus Plus website and apply for your capacity building grant. 21st century higher education starts here. Want to go to Europe for a short teaching assignment? Looking
Yes, voila, eureka, everything works. Welcome back. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. So, yes, you've been fairly punctual. I guess A for effort rather than anything else. So welcome back, and we'll be discussing the higher education sector as a catalyst for the global gateway and the EU-ASEAN Education Cooperation, of course. So as I said, welcome back. This is going to be much more of an interactive session. First of all, we're going to hear some impulse statements from some key participants in our projects. And then after that, you will group together. And I would suggest that you group together closer, because some tables are fairly empty. So try and find, tables where you can actually work together, and quite a few fill the tables, let's put it this way. And then we will hear back from the rapporteurs. There will be rapporteurs for the different questions. I'll go into detail, don't worry just yet. Okay, we're going to kick off with a video that will explain the global gateway. Let's do it. Right, thank you very much. So that was the Global Gateway, excuse me. So we will now have quick fire impulse statements from two projects which they'll share their experiences of cooperation on climate and on health. So the first project is Safima. It's a midwifery project, and joining us online are Dr. Evika Karamagioli. She's from the Kapodistrian University of Athens. After her, we will have Professor Tan Ngi, University of Health Sciences in Cambodia, and then Professor Le Tan Tung from the Nam Dinh University of Nursing in Vietnam. So let's kick off with Dr. Evika joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've been, since this morning, hearing all these powerful testimonies of how important is all this support of the European Union to the higher education in Asia. For us in the University of Athens, it's a very, let's say, emotional moment, as the project that I'm going to talk to you about is just finished. It was a COVID project, so you can imagine the challenges and what happened. We will have also the opportunity to hear from the two universities that we work together in Cambodia and Vietnam, their testimonies of what was done. The idea that we had was to support, let's say, the primary healthcare system in Cambodia and Vietnam by proposing with the financial support of the European Union, a new postgraduate course on midwifery. So I would just like to share with you our experience and 2 or 3 points. For us, what we have seen as a consortium, the consortium composed by universities in Cambodia, Vietnam, Denmark, and Greece, it was that education has, as was mentioned, a pure transformative power. But what is essential is what was mentioned even before, this zone of trust. When we collaborated with our partners in order to create the curriculum and in order to implement the different training activities, it was a valuable experience for us also in the University of Athens, because once more was clear that when we are talking about education, it's much a broad issue, broader than just the educational and the academic part. It has to do with teamwork, dedication, openness, open to hear what the others say, and mainly it is a matter of culture. And that was the key idea that we would like to stress as, let's say, one of the key outcomes of this project, that respecting the cultural environment, respecting the culture of the country that you work, and especially now in our case in Asia, is a very important issue if you want to be able to have a dialectic process and have real outcomes with a country that you work with. And we have heard all these powerful testimony from the alumni in the previous session about how life-changing was the experience. For us also, it was life-changing. We were in Vietnam for the closing of our project. It was really, really powerful to be able to see what education and what this, let's say, combination of the European aspect of education in relation to the Asian countries can offer. And of course, there are these constraints. When you work, everybody will agree with me that when you work in Asia or when you work outside Europe, there are constraints. For us, the major outcome and the major lesson learned had to do with this flexibility and adaptability. We have seen that in order to be able to offer something and co-create an educational curriculum in higher education, you need to be flexible and you need to adapt to the environment that you have to work in it. And I'm sure that you'll agree that COVID was one of these experiences. Adaptability, so and flexibility should be first. And also the co-creational aspect. You will hear the representatives from the universities from Cambodia and from Vietnam. For us, it was essential, and this is one of the key outcomes, that we need to go to models that co-create the outcome. Even if we have the best proposal, if we had the experience, we, at least in the University of Athens, we had worked before with countries from Asia, but each case is different, and respect and hear the people that you work with in the higher institution is essential. And also
Dr.
this.
Evika,
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Can you just wrap up very, very quickly?
Yeah, no, I'm just finished. That this is my main conclusion. Co-create and respect the culture where we work with.
Very, very good. Thank you. That was the SEFIMA Midwifery Project, Dr. Evika. Yeah. We do not have our colleague joining us from Vietnam, but Professor Tan Ngi has sent us a video. So let's watch the video very quickly.
Hi, my name is Professor Tan Ngi. I am Director Technical School for Medical Care of University of Helsinki in Cambodia, which is one of the beneficiaries of the SEMA project funded by Erasmus Plus program of the European Commission. On behalf of the University of Helsinki, I would like to share how the SEMA project has been important midwifery education of country. This project advances capacity midwifery in area knowledge, skill, and attitude, particularly for those who reside in rural region. It has given great opportunity for the professional development. As more midwifery will train women will important success high quality care for the instant under SEMA advanced midwifery practice course. US has already trained 42 midwifery and around 90% of them working in rural healthcare organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now we move on to the second project, which is the Tropimundo project, and we are delighted to have Professor Farid from the Université Libre de Bruxelles here. So Professor Farid, let's have your 1 minute impulse statement. You can stand here, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm a mangrove biologist, and when I founded Tropimundo, which is the Erasmus Mundus master's course or joint master degree in tropical biodiversity and ecosystems, for me it was important not only to teach students so far from their home countries, because Belgium is what, 4,000 kilometers from the nearest mangrove. Actually, I wanted to send them to these countries and have collaboration with local universities. So we have heard a lot about Asian students coming here, but it's also about European students going to the Asian region and learn from the universities there. So we have in our Tropimundo Master, we have different associates partners from Indonesia, from Singapore, from the Philippines, the University of the Philippines, by the way, but also a full semester in University Terengganu, Malaysia, which is one of the universities in Malaysia, where we send our students for 6 months. So that's the message basically that I wanted to pass. You will hear it later on also, that there is a two-way, so there is a co-creation, like my colleague said, but there's also two-way learning. It's not only Asian people learning from us, but also we learning from them.
Thank you, Professor Farid, for making that very important point. Two-way learning, two-way street in our relationship with ASEAN. It's very important to highlight that. Thank you very much. And now we will hear also from marine scientist Tin Buenaf, 1 minute, and then Liam Lass, and they're joining us by video.
Despite my potential and passion to become a scientist, I always felt limited, and hurdles were continuously placed before me. So getting a scholarship in the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master Degree Program in Tropical Biodiversity and Ecosystems allowed me to start actualizing my potential. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I met people from around the world, I was exposed to different cultures, and most importantly, it continued to open new doors for me. Apart from boosting my career by combining my unique experiences in Tropimundo, my childhood experiences, and my unique Filipino heritage, I realized that I want to be able to help people who are in the same boat as I was. I want to show the Filipino youth that there's so much more that they can do. None of us have to conform to what society dictates. We can morph our passions with our careers and make something unique out of it. And we can always do better. I'm Christine Buenafe, 26, a quantitative marine ecologist, and proud to call myself a Pinoy scientist.
We have Liam joining us, video as well.
Hi there, my name is Liam Lax, and I'm a 2016 batch Tropimundo alumni. And for me, as an Irish person traveling to Malaysia, in the end living there for a whole year, it had a huge impact on my life, on my career, and just the people I met there, the friends I've made. I'm in London now at the Zoological Society of London RCUK conference, presenting work for my PhD. And I'm now doing a PhD on coral reef ecology, looking at coral heat tolerance and mass coral bleaching. And this was all triggered from, for me, this path was all triggered from going to Malaysia, diving on reefs, getting involved with local research expeditions. And really, that was the catalyst. So I have so much to thank Tropimundo for.
Great. And now we have video messages from 2 alumni of Erasmus Mundus, Ira Purnomo and Marcela Hussein. So let's watch the videos.
Hi, my name is Ira Purnomo and I'm from Indonesia. Hello, my name is Marcela and also from Indonesia. So I did my Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree in Management and Engineering of Environment and Energy, or ME3.
And I graduated from Erasmus Mundus Joint Master in Research Innovations in Higher Education.
I did my master's studies in Spain, France, Sweden, with my final project in Germany. All of those 4 countries in 2 years.
I also studied at 4 different countries in Austria, Finland, China, and Germany. Really an amazing experience.
So besides gaining technical knowledge, the mobility scheme itself also taught me to adapt very quickly to change and also to an international environment. These qualities are very useful in the professional world.
Meanwhile, for me, it's really an eye-opener experience because by living in Europe, I really learned the importance of sustainability and also about circular economy. You know, it becomes part of our daily life to reduce waste and recycle.
So after I graduated from my master program, I worked in the area of renewable energy financing, hydropower, and water supply. Right now, I work as an analyst in climate finance, where one of my projects support the energy transition mechanism in Indonesia. Our government is committed to phasing out coal-fired power plants early and include renewable energy in the power system with the support of international communities in the financing scheme.
And for me, it actually led me to work in my current company. So I work as VP of operations at an e-commerce company, which also part of the biggest classified marketplace group in Southeast Asia region. Our goal is to make a second-hand the first choice in our effort to make a sustainable lifestyle and also support the circular economy. I think it's really great as a means to reduce waste and also provide value for money.
Energy transition is an important topic right now in the world, and the European Union highly supports these plans in emerging countries. I believe that the right education and experience can prepare quality professionals to support this field, and Erasmus Mundus is certainly doing its part.
So we would like to say, thank you, European Union.
Thank you very much indeed. Quite head spinning there, isn't it? How many countries in 2 years? I couldn't keep track. Amazing, amazing, all the knowledge that they're picking up. Right, so now that's, we move to the interactive part. As I said, roundtable discussions, 2 questions. I think you choose the question that you want to deal with. One is, what does higher education contribute to the Global Gateway theme? Common challenges of Global Gateway. You heard about Global Gateway this morning, and once again, you saw the video. And the second question is, what can institutions such as the EU and ASEAN do to amplify people-to-people conversations? We've been talking about it all morning as well, so plenty of inspiration there for you. So I think the tables are more or less full, maybe a couple of tables could do with some more participants. So you have about 25 minutes to come up with answers to these 2 questions, and there will be rapporteurs, and then I will query and interrogate the rapporteurs on what they've learned and picked up. So off to you. Good luck.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll just have a short break and then we can continue more of the question and answer anywhere we've had time to reflect. But we also
So, hello. I'm sorry to be the party pooper, but it is time for us to get the rapporteurs onto the stage to tell us about how you've answered the two questions that were put to you. And the two questions were, of course, what does the higher education contribute to Global Gateway? And what can institutions such as EU and ASEAN do to amplify people-to-people connections? So come on stage, please, as I call you out. The rapporteur Summer Shia, British Council's Director for ASEAN. Welcome. Michael Horrig, DEAD's Director, EU Office. And Peter van Tuyl, did I pronounce that correctly? NAFIC's Director, Indonesia. Peter? Okay. There you are. Great. Okay, let's hear from the British Council's Director, Summer. 3 minutes.
Oh God, has the clock started now? Gosh, I caught by surprise. Thank you, Shada. I mean, there's a lot of rich conversations, and so I'll be trying my best. But I mean, I'm looking at my tables on the right-hand side of the stage. So in answering the first question, we talked about how higher education can address the gaps between young people and the rest of society, make the voice of young people heard, and also break silos and tap into the enthusiasm, passion, and creativity of young people of today's world. We also talked about the how the higher education can respond to COVID and other pandemics and other disasters as we are recovering together and recovering stronger, quoting the G20 motto from this year's G20 in Indonesia. And also how higher education can help build global citizenship, focused on skills needed for the future, soft skills, 21st century skills, become lifelong learners, problem solving and critical thinking. And also the role higher education plays in digital transformation. So how can we really harness the digital skills people have, increase the digital literacy, and address the digital divide in today's society? I'll move on now to the second question. What more can institutions do in EU and ASEAN? One is about how we can bring together the people, so the experts in research, and look at the perfect fit between EU and ASEAN, how our expertise can complement each other and address the gaps in each other's regions, and exchange our, not only academically and research-wise, but also exchange our values and beliefs, and then really understanding and respecting what's in it for each other. Capacity building for the teachers, for the researcher, for the students, for the policymakers. There is something to be learned from both sides, and really we need to focus on that equal partnership. And also to think about strengthening the regional networks, so such as EUA, ENCA, AUN. So those initiatives we have started from SHARE continue to use those platforms to exchange ideas, and also respond to the needs of the industry. So again, bring them in so that they could help us teach better, and in return, we produce the skilled future workforce that the industry would need. And finally, really have hybrid events so that we can focus on and tap into the online learning we have gained in the last 3 years thanks to the pandemic, but also realize the value of face-to-face events like this so that we can use them to our strengths, and also really create some policy shifts through stimulating conversations like we're having today.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Great, Shamar, and all that without having prepared, just listening to what you, and contributing and listening to what your tables were saying. Amazing stuff, bringing people together. And indeed, hybrid events, I think, are the way to the future, aren't they? So people who can travel, want to travel are here, and then the others across the world can join us. And I think that's something, a skill that we've discovered during the pandemic. One of the rare upsides of the pandemic, if I may say so, creating regional networks and responding to the needs of industry, but industry perhaps responding to the needs of young people as well. Exactly, right? Okay, cool. Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shada. I had the privilege to actually witness all the virtual conversations. So I was just outside of the room
switching between different Zoom chat rooms and having these students, for instance, from the Erasmus Mundus alumni network discussing virtually, very, very fascinating. I think what I picked up from the first question was there is definitely ample scope for higher education and universities to play an active role in the Global Gateway strategy. Universities are important meeting places. They bring together a variety of actors. They are chipping in a variety of perspectives, but also teach people soft skills, and more importantly are, in many countries, the drivers for development. So when we talk about international partnerships and the role of education, we should never, ever underestimate the importance of also talking about higher education. It's not just about emergency relief, it's also about fostering innovative systems. So that was something that I picked up from the discussions on the Global Gateway. On the question on how things can be amplified, I think there were lots of interesting suggestions and good comments. One of them was that there needs to be more done for cultural exchange. I mean, it's nice to have exchanges, but it's so valuable to understand more profoundly each other's culture. And together with that comes, of course, language skills. If we want to talk about improving connectivity within Southeast Asia, for instance, the importance of English as a language to be using for communication in the region stands out. And then maybe as a last point, and maybe a summary of what should be done, is really to provide eye-opening experiences. This is something that connectivity programs that foster exchange, common research can all do. They're basically happening if you're young at a point where it changes your life. We've heard that from Gita this morning. This is really something that institutions like the EU and ASEAN have the power to do. And I think that's what they should be doing. And that's what I heard in our virtual chat rooms. And I hope this is looking at some of the moderators exactly what they would want me to say as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So taking what Samashia had said about global citizenship and equality of partnership further, and talking about the role of universities in the global gateway, the soft skills, the soft infrastructure, and the need for cultural exchanges and eye-opening experiences. And I think I'm hoping that the Commissioner, the Minister, and the ASEAN Secretary General will make sure that we do continue with similar projects, because it is important to bring young people together. As someone who's not that young anymore, I'd like more contacts also with my academic friends and journalists across ASEAN. And once we can start traveling freely, I think that's going to be very crucial in the way forward. Right, okay, Peter, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Shada, thank you very much. 2 hard acts to follow. I circulated the tables here at the left side of the room from this perspective, and I'm adding on to the previous rapporteurs. The gateway idea, people said, well, that brings in the human element into collaboration. And there is a need to also mutually learn about values. I think Samar also said something about that. So it's not only about getting more smarter, but it's also learning about, values and how we stand in life, in our families and in our societies. Lots of discussion about digitalization also in the gateway idea, not the least to support inclusion, which is a value in and of itself. Digitalization opens up education for students living in the remote areas, for example, which is an issue in many ASEAN countries. So make that a focus of the collaboration. Another point made, also connecting to some of the introductions at the beginning of the day. We as NIFIC has been working with that and British Council and Chair, which focuses on higher education, but do focus also on vocational education and on TFET. The example that we saw in the introductions before the session, a collaboration around midwives training. I mean, that's typically is a skill, right? That's not primarily research, but that is vocational education. Bring in more players in the collaboration, businesses, but also at one table there was an interesting discussion about the potential role of local governments, city-to-city collaboration. That's where often there is a lot of energy also to pursue the education agenda. So let the EU also not forget about that, because there are existing networks where you can connect to. And yes, several tables, of course, remarks were made about, basically the issue. Please do sort out the technical sides of the collaboration. Visa processes are still cumbersome. They're still long. They're still, expensive. Fix it, if you're serious about this collaboration. And the same when it comes to the information dissemination. People are not always aware. So maybe we can create a platform to, showcase positive stories about the collaboration and how this is benefiting both EU and ASEAN. And my last remark there also, which was said at another table, of course, what can EU, ASEAN, what can they do? Yeah, funding. This needs to be resourced. But please do not look at that funding as a grant, as a gift. These are investments. A scholarship is an investment in a young person. And there is a very high rate of return on that investment. So do change the frame also of the collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you to the three of you, but above all, thank you to all of you for contributing. Very important points raised there as well. Digital inclusion, somebody before had mentioned digital divide. It's something that we're working on very, very much here in Europe as well, because remote areas, Peter, they're not just in ASEAN. We have our remote areas too, and we have to reach out to them, and especially to the marginalized, right? Marginalized people who definitely need to have digital skills in order to network. You talked also about more players needed, and I couldn't agree with you more. Business, yes, but local governments, so important in terms of inclusion as well, diversity and climate change. And you made a very, very, I would say, strong appeal for visa facilitation, easier visas for young people, easier visas for people who want to learn more about other cultures. It's such an obstacle, not just here in Europe, I have to say, but across the world, And we haven't traveled for 2.5 years because of the pandemic. It's time that we started doing this, and you can see the fantastic energy in this room because we've been able to meet face to face. And of course, people online, it's wonderful that we have those digital skills so we can engage with each other. And basically, I mean, we built networks of strength and empowerment on our virtual links for 2.5 years now. So thank you very much indeed to the three of you. You may now leave the stage. Let's give them a big hand. Great job done by the three rapporteurs, but as I was saying, above all, by all of you, I have to say your ideas are very inspirational. And as someone who works on EU-ASEAN for years and years now, I'm probably one of the few journalists in Europe and one of the few think tankers who's constantly kept up the work on ASEAN, not just because it was fashionable at one point, Louise is nodding, but also when it was not fashionable to work on the Indo-Pacific and on ASEAN. And I was there 8 years ago, and it's such a pleasure, such an honor to be here and see how well the project has fared, how successful it's been, and to hear the voices of Theda, but also the two ladies who were joining us online, telling us about the life-changing experiences they've lived through. And I wish all of you very, very well, and stay safe, stay healthy. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Miriam Ferran. She's Deputy Director General of International Partnerships. We heard this morning from the Commissioner. Now Miriam has very kindly come to give us the farewell thoughts on this. Thank you, Miriam, for joining us. Pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much, Shana, and good morning to all. I feel very tempted to tell you that the intensity and the interest of the debates this morning left me completely speechless, as you can hear. Unfortunately, the weather in Brussels also contributed to that. But I have to say that I'm really impressed by the quality of the debates this morning, and I'm really proud to be here with you to be able to close this, this session. I would like to thank you all for your participation, and with, of course, special thanks to the Minister of Education of Cambodia and the ASEAN Secretary General who were with us at the introductory session this morning, of course, together with my Commissioner, Jutta Urpilainen. But my special thanks go to all the members of the SHARE Consortium for not only the very successful organization of today's event, but for the excellent impact that they have been enabling the program to deliver. And I think we heard a lot about this and some very moving testimony. So as has been repeatedly said, ASEAN is a very important strategic partner for the EU, and this week in Brussels is really showing this, with the expected summit that will take place on Wednesday, but also with those side events, the one today on higher education, the one tomorrow on youth and business, because all those specific events are really giving beef and flesh to our cooperation on sectors and issues which are fundamental for the development overall of the two regions, I'm really tempted to say. We have heard a lot about our friendship and how the two key programs, SHARE and Erasmus+, have been contributing to building bonds and ties between the two regions. And once again, I would like to have a special thank for Tida, because I have nothing to say after her intervention. She really said more than someone working in the European Commission could ever have expected on the success of a program. So I would like to reassure all of you, Tida first, but also Cynthia, who testified also from the more teacher perspective, and Chris, who made a kind of important call, I'm looking for him, on the importance of the continuation of this program. So indeed, the SHARE higher education program will reach its end, but we are not reaching the end of the EU support to higher education in ASEAN. And as Commissioner Urpilainen announced, as part of our Global Gateway investment package, we in the summit on Wednesday will announce a very important initiative, which what we call a Team Europe initiative. Team Europe, because it's a joint initiative between the European Commission, all the member states, the European Investment Bank, and the national development banks from the member states. And this is very important because as part of the partnership we have been discussing, we have also increased our internal partnership within the European Union. And we now really show one single face of the institutions and the member states. And this Team Europe initiative will be focusing on sustainable connectivity. And sustainable connectivity, of course, includes a high education component. So be reassured, we may not be talking about SHARE anymore, but we will continue having a high education joint program between the European Union and ASEAN. And building on all the recommendations of the discussions you have been having this morning, I'm also very happy to say that I think let's see if we have it 100% right, but at least we will be in the shape of this new program, taking into account many of the recommendations that have been emanating from today's panels. In particular, maybe a stronger focus on digital literacy, digital skills. Also an important component on TVET, and I just heard the recommendations of the last panel. So all this will be embedded in this new program. And coming back to Chris, well, I'm happy to see that even if we're only 50% as successful as SHARE, it will already be okay. So this relieves a lot of pressure from our shoulders. But frankly speaking, we hope to be at least 100%, if not more, successful as SHARE. The same applies for Erasmus. You heard Antonetta explaining the success of the current Erasmus program on its all three components and the future of it. So we really aim at continuing this program, which is revealing one of the flagships of the European Union, I tend to say. I think it's maybe the most known brand from the European Union externally. And so we continue paying as much attention and interest to the continuation of this program in the coming years. We are all fully aware that when we speak of EU support to higher education, we're not just talking development and grants. This is really an investment in the future and an investment in the future of the world, because a lot of the discussions that have taken place, we're dealing about connectivity. So by helping young people in ASEAN developing in certain skills, we help the whole world. And I also heard a call for more EU students going or teachers going to the universities in ASEAN, a move that we will equally support. So this is really sustainable connectivity, and I will insist on the word sustainable as a closing remark. Global Gateway is the EU offer for sustainable connectivity in its key components, from climate change to digital, transport, health, education, and research. And what makes it different from alternative offers are the value set on which it is founded. And this is what makes this offer unique. We build on a common set of values, transparency, human rights, protection of data, which are fundamental for us and which are equally forming the basis of the connectivity we are developing in higher education. So we hope that Global Gateway investment will allow us to continue and help amplify the excellent cooperation we have been witnessing. And frankly, as a civil servant from the European Commission, it's really motivating to have participated to your debate this morning and heard all the positive words on the ongoing program. So I just hope we do continue, and I will stop there, closing this event and inviting you for lunch in the foyer area just outside the room. Thank you very much.